Nice to see you. To see you nice. Welcome to live stream. I'm not sure if you're there yet. Sounds like a weird thing to say. Yes, you are there. It sometimes like starts and I start talking and it's not started. Actually, it's a little weird. Sometimes it's delayed. But good evening. Nice to see you. To see you nice. If this is your first time to live stream, I'm going to explain to you how it works. Basically, the way it works is you can ask me questions through Skype, which is Lisa Cairns 12. So that's through Skype, which is Lisa Cairns 12. And you can write a question or you can call in. But if you want to call in, please make sure you've got a headset with a microphone, good internet connection, and just put call me and I will actually call you when I'm ready, because it's inappropriate just to call in the middle of the talk because it's disturbing to me. I don't have a professional team helping me with this. I do it all by myself, so I can't easily delete your call. What else? So I do these talks every Sunday at 6 p.m. French time. The talks on Wednesday are currently suspended, so it's just on Sunday. Always check my website to make sure I'm doing the talks. I do the talks live on YouTube, so you just go to my YouTube channel and then you shall find me presenting myself there. Let me just make sure that my audio is in. Hello? Yes. If you'd like to attend something I'm doing, then the next event I'm doing is the 29th of August to the 4th of September in northern Germany. It's a non-duality and tantra retreat. So you're very welcome to find out about that on my website, which is in the link below, I think. What else? Oh yeah, and the retreat I'm doing after that is in the south of Spain, and that's the 18th of October for a week. So the 30th? I forget what date that finishes. And that's in the south of Spain. You also can book sessions on my website, but I book out far in advance. So I'm booked out till October, I think now, or maybe even November. So if you want to book sessions, it's best to book a batch if you want to do like a more in-depth talk with me. And then if you feel like you want to cancel them nearer the time, you just need to give me 3 days notice, because it takes me time to write to people to get other people to my waiting list. But that's not, yeah, it's one way you can do it. At the beginning of my talks, I always like to do a meditation. So you're welcome to join to do the meditation. I like to do like maybe between 15 to 30 minutes of just sitting in silence. That just floats my boat. I went for a while of telling you different meditations that you could do, but I always feel like it's the same people that are watching, so you maybe don't need the instructions, but maybe it's not. Maybe this is your first time. So maybe I'll give a bit of an intro into meditations that you can do. So so firstly, I don't see meditation as a destination. I was initially taught to meditate when I was involved in a Buddhist group called the Foundation of the Western Buddhist Order. And they taught me two main meditation techniques, the mindfulness of breathing and the metta bhavana. And the metta bhavana was the evoking of compassion, and then that mindfulness of breathing was the concentration of the mind. And I found both of them so profound. You people out there have it so much easier in the sense that you can access this information instantly through typing into YouTube. Whereas when I was spiritually seeking, it was just as the internet was beginning, and it wasn't really something that you could look up on the internet as such. And it never entered my consciousness, the idea of just sitting there and paying attention to your mind. Like this, the mind was me, the mind was who I was. It wasn't something I gave any thought to. If I thought that person's a nasty person, that was reality. That wasn't a mind thinking, that wasn't someone thinking, that was the way it was. So when I went there and they talked about thoughts and the impressions thoughts give, the emotions that thoughts can give, and the experiences that thoughts can give, I just was totally blown away by that notion. It just hadn't really occurred to me that I could question the thinking. The thinking was biological. It was me. It was what came out of my mother's vagina. It was what was created. And I remember the first time I practiced meditating, it was in Islington in North London, in this small Buddhist centre, in this studio, and it was hot. It was the summertime, and I remember the smell of freshly cut grass and that gentle breeze that you get, a gentle warm breeze that you get in the summer. And it was on a main road, I believe, so there was also the sounds of cars and hustle bustle and London life. And we sat in this room, maybe like 30 people in a small room, and we all faced a statue of the Buddha with garlands and candles. It was a gold Buddha. And it was a pine floor and white walls. And I remember sitting there and him explaining, the teacher explaining what to do. And as I shut my eyes and paid attention to my mind, I realized there was a beast inside of me. Not a beast as in something nasty necessarily, but just a beast as in it was wild. I was like a wild dragon, like diving through the skies, like breathing out fire and then riding the winds, diving through the clouds. It was so intense. And I didn't know that before. Isn't that crazy? I didn't know that was happening inside my own body. I thought those thoughts were me. I didn't even know a difference between me and the thoughts. And as I sat there, I realized that the mind was wild. It was totally out of control. And as they explained it, it's like a muscle that you exercise, and if you don't tame it, if you don't practice, then it goes into default. And mine was in default monkey mind. And the first one they taught me was the mindfulness of breathing, which is that you count your breath as you go in and out up to the number 10, and then you start again. And that sounds really simple, but it's actually really difficult, because what happens is you go into automatic and then you end up counting to like 96, and then you're like, oh crap, I meant to be counting, and then you go back again to 0. So you just count 10 breaths and then back to 0, 10 breaths and back to 0. It's so simple. And it's just about training the attention of your mind. And then the other one was called Metta Bhavana. I never teach this meditation to anybody, but at the time it was my favorite out of the two. And I think this was what really compelled me towards Buddhism, was this notion of compassion. And in this meditation, you selected 3 people, one that you really liked, one that you were neutral to, and your enemy, and then the third, your enemy. And then you went through 3 stages of sending them compassion. I can't remember the words exactly. It was like, you imagine that person, so you imagine the person that you really like and you send them goodwill, and then the person that you're indifferent to, and then thirdly, your enemy, and you send them goodwill. And this again was really profound. I remember crying the first time I did it. I mean, how beautiful is that, to sit with other people in a room and be sending your enemy goodwill? I mean, you certainly didn't do that in the Christian church. Maybe it was happening, but I just didn't perceive that at the time. Christianity, if you didn't know, was what I was brought up in. It's what most people are brought up in England. I think it's maybe 60 or 70% the majority. Maybe even 80%. It's either Church of England or Catholic. And then there was more meditations I learned along the way. I really enjoyed Vipassana meditation. This was another one of my favourites. They didn't teach this at the FWBO then to me, but I learnt it with Goenka Vipassana. And this one was body scan, like going through every bit of your body and feeling every bit of your body. And that I found very profound. And then the next one is, I don't know exactly where this one came from, but I know it's what Nisargadatta Maharaj did for 3 years prior to his awakening, is moving your attention continuously to I am. So to me, what I am means is presence. So it's kind of what you're doing when you're counting 1, 2, but it's a very specific part of presence. It's that sense of being. It's that sense of being this. All of these meditations are fantastic for settling down the person, particularly the I am meditation. But the I am meditation takes time, to build to. You need to focus your mind. So sometimes the mindfulness of breathing, the counting the breath, is a good one to start with, because the mind isn't used to the practice of just moving itself back into being. And it's not got much judge or much ropes to hold on to. Some other teachers teach moving it back into consciousness. I prefer the I am. My teachers were Roger Castillo, Ramesh Balsekar, main teachers. And then Nisargadatta Maharaj wasn't my teacher. I never even studied him, but through Ramesh and through Roger. I read his book once, I think, actually. But through their books, he was very apparent, obviously. So you can pick any of those meditations. It seems like I'm just drifting off into meditation, and we just go for it. Hello. Hello. So here the Bodhisattva of compassion, when he meditated deeply, he saw the 5 skandhas. Sorry, it just popped up into my head. It's from the Heart Sutra. If you've never read the Heart Sutra before, you should. It's super beautiful. Okay, but back to business. What is the title of the talk? It is, what does it mean there is no I? What does that mean? When we are incy-bincy spiders crawling up the wall, when we're incy-bincy, little tiny babies, we do not have a sense of I. So we don't have a sense that we are somebody inside these bodies looking out and experiencing the world. We don't have a sense that we're big or small or white or black or smart or stupid or good enough or not good enough. There's no sense of anything. There is just presence. There's just this sense of watching, this empty watching, and this alive presence, this I am, this beingness. And it's so alive and fresh, even though it can't be more fresh than any other aliveness. But in the baby, there is no illusion in the way, there is no filters on it, there is just pure awakeness looking out. And the baby's brain hasn't really started functioning properly yet, so it's not really registering time, it's not really registering memories, it doesn't know that it's a baby inside the body, it can't speak. So its brain is limited in what it can do, so what projections can be shone out from the body. So there is like this pure looking through. The baby is not deluded into believing an illusion. But when I say the baby doesn't even exist really. The baby is habits and conditions that are arising in that moment, but it's just that the pure consciousness is not blocked. It's not mixed with being a personal self. It's just experiencing. And then at like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, the baby starts to have this sense of separation. We don't know why it comes or how it comes. It's something to do with language, that's for sure, and intelligence. And what separation does is it sucks in your presence and your consciousness, so that sense of I am and that empty looking, and it makes it feel like that I am and that consciousness is looking at a separate world, rather than that consciousness and that sense of I am being part of the world and being in everything, it makes it feel like it belongs inside the body and it belongs to somebody that's moving through time. So it belongs to a timeline. And it's like an energetic contraction from being everything to being limited. And as soon as that happens, there is a sense of suffering in that child. There is a sense of being cut off from what you are, and there is a sense of being chased by darkness. That sounds so dramatic, but it has these polarities in it. It's not all the time, and it is all the time, but its strength and intensity increases and decreases. So the more happy the child is, the more at one it feels with life, and the more it suffers, the more separate it feels from life. Hello? Just talking to a ghost off there in the corner. And it has these two opposites, so it feels like it's lost love. It's lost who it truly is, because who it truly is love. And that it's a sense that something dark is chasing it. I don't know if you remember that as a child, when you begin to, be scared of the night, or you're scared of the bad man. I remember I started going to school really early, like at 3 years old. In other countries you don't start so young, but I went to play school, and then after play school, so it wasn't really exactly school, it was preschool, but I started going to preschool at like 3 years old. And for some reason they decided that it was appropriate to teach us about stranger danger. I remember this was terrifying. They showed us videos of this man that was all shady and dark, coming and taking you away from your family and taking you into a car and then doing bad things to you in the car. And that was so terrifying to me. I remember just being like, oh, stranger danger. And they had like a whole video from the police that they showed you about stranger danger and how you shouldn't go off with a stranger danger. Stranger danger, stranger danger. Who is a man and looks shady. That's what it was in the 80s. Yeah. And I remember being terrified of that stranger danger. I also remember being afraid of the night. Not so much though. I remember having that as well. Afraid of monsters under my bed, those types of things. We had to check the bedroom before we went to bed. And this is the beginnings of identification, that it's your job, that it's your role to stop this darkness that's out in the world. And that darkness forms from a sense of separation, that you are separate from everything. Because there's nothing out there that can get you, nothing. But what begins to happen to that darkness and that desire to get back to love is they become part of your story. Isn't that bizarre that they become part of your story? But they do. So what does that mean? They become part of your mission in life. Your mission in life will be particular ways to get that love back. So whether you believe that's being an artist or a ballerina or a kickboxer or an accountant or having lots of money or house or kids, it will become part of your story and you will strive towards that. And that might be there without seeking, but without seeking it will come from a different place, it will come from flow. But with seeking, it's like you need it. You need that in order to stay together. And then the running from darkness is like this pedaling away from bad things that can occur to you. So it's like everybody has their particular fears. So whether it be the snakes, the spiders, authorities, police, parents, family, sibling, partner, work, bosses. There'll be this anxiety that you feel is like grabbing onto you, but you won't be conscious of that. It will just become part of your story. So you'll come back from work moaning about your boss and how your boss did this to you and did that to you, and it's all bullshit. Really, what happens is the boss evokes in you that primal fear of being alive, that you're separate and this world can devour you. It doesn't mean that our bodies don't have this natural instinct to move towards pleasure and move away from pain. It does. But it's different when you feel separate from life. It's intensified. So you might still have issues with the boss, even if you're free, but it's intensified when you feel separate and the seeking to it has an extra edge to it. And it becomes important and obsessive for your mind. And it's not seen as a story, it's not seen as seeking, it's not seen as a suffering story, it's seen as just part of you, part of your life, part of what makes you you. And all of that combined together, the consciousness and the sense of being, and these thoughts and feelings and emotions, and this I that's constantly telling the story of you, give the appearance that you actually exist separately as somebody inside that body. Whereas actually there aren't people inside these bodies. When you walk around, you're not looking at anybody. Who would you be looking at? There is nobody there. It just appears as somebody there in a storyline. But in this moment, there is no people here. Which is really profound. Like, who is here? who is here now? So there is an assumption that there is somebody looking at your eyes. There is an assumption that somebody came into this room and sat down. There is an assumption that you've lived a life for 30 or 40 or 50 years. But who is this person that has been alive? Who is this person that's going to die? Who is this person that suffers or doesn't suffer? And when it's really seen, you'll see that everything that was sewn together making you didn't actually exist. It was never there. It was never in relationship with life. It was life itself. It was an appearance happening, but that person wasn't experiencing life. That person was an experience that's appearing and disappearing. It's not actually something that's separate. When it is separate, it gives this dissatisfaction which impels the story of you to go forward and find a solution for all its problems. As this begins to get undone, so as it begins to get seen through, all types of karmas can come up, and often the deeper and deeper you go into that illusion, the more intense and neurotic your fears or discomforts come. Like, they'll grab onto anything. So if you go through everything and you dismantle everything, then they'll grab onto the room falling in. Like, you'll begin to get neurotic about the room collapsing in on you. Like, it will endlessly try to find problems that aren't even there. So even if you manifest the most perfect life that doesn't have any problems, if you feel separate, then your mind will begin to make up problems to justify why it feels uncomfortable and to try to seek a solution for it. Not because the mind is bad, not because you have this big bag ego inside of you that you need to rip up and chop up and tell off and put in the corner, put in the naughty corner, sit, and say sit, and get out your little spanking rod. Not at all. Just functioning that's appearing because there's discomfort, because of this separation, this energetic feeling. And it's not true. You are not separate. Oh, humanity's problem is separation. That's what people suffer for. It's not the problems. It just appears like it's the problems that the mind says it is. It's not. It's separation. It is the end of suffering. It really is. But it just takes a warrior-like mind or a warrior-like experience in order to see that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. If there are any questions. Yes. Hi, Thomas. Hi, Andre. Hi, Isabel. Hi, Wesley. This is from Wesley. Hi, Lisa. Namaste. 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 I see God in you. A question about non-duality. I always feel it's a shame that we hide the meaning in a Sanskrit name, like we don't say it, like, hi Lisa, I see God in you. So beautiful. A question about non-duality. I have heard the idea that when the sense of separation, identification is dissolved, the appearance of a world no longer arises. Ramana states this as, when the mind, which is the cause of all cognition and all action becomes still, the world will disappear. Is that so? Speaking from experience, is it seen that there is no separation between true nature and all that is? In a sense, I awareness contains and I am all things, and all things are equally empty. Yet the appearance of a world still remains. It is just the identifications are dissolving. Does the question make sense? Thanks, Lisa. Take care. Thanks, Wesley, for the question. Yes, the question makes sense. Yes, the world does disappear when you truly sink into who you truly are. When there is a sinking into who you are. When there is a disappearance of the illusion, the whole world disappears. There is no you in relationship to the world. In order for there to be a functioning body-mind, though, there has to be thinking coming back. Otherwise, these instruments wouldn't be able to interact with the world. So you could say that that can only really be an experience in this life, like an awakening experience, but it can't be permanent. In some ways, it can be permanent because it's always there. Like right now, there is no world. But there needs to be a person which can interpret certain objects and certain experiences in order to be able to relate to the world. So what happens here is there is like there's two things happening. There is no world. There is this propensity for the absolute, and then there mind can endlessly evolve and expand into this. So that Lisa that comes in that mind, or the Wesley mind, can infinitely expand to greater depths of understanding, of being, of interacting, of knowledge. There is no limit on anything that arises in this world. Everything that arises in this world is continuously evolving. But this connection to who you are is instantaneous and cannot evolve because the absolute cannot evolve. Which is marvelous. Marvelous. Hello, Jordan. Hi, Jordan. This is a big question. Okay. Hello, Lisa. I need my binoculars on. Let's just make sure the stream is still working. Hello, yes. Everything is in working order. Hello, Lisa. Hello, Jordan. Nice to meet you, sir. I'm writing to you today because I just had some difficult moments those last weeks. Don't want to see her again. She had trouble with alcohol and was violent verbally, physically and emotionally with me. It was really terrible. I had to fight with her once or twice because she was out of control. I feel terrible that I had to do this to her to defend myself. During the last week, she was flirting with someone else, writing him lots of messages, spending lots of time with him. I felt in me lots of jealousy, despite the fact she told me things were clear for her and that she always respects me in this. Sometime after her crisis with alcohol, we had sex and mentioned him. We had any argument about it. She always blamed me, telling me I wasn't open enough. I had the feeling she never included me in her decision. It was always about her. Today I'm split between the feeling that I can't accept such a thing in my life, that she is probably a narcissist, and the feeling of sadness and not sure if I'll be strong enough to say no if she tries to come back. It is very weird because even in the worst moments I've never felt she was wrong or judged her. Even right now I feel love and affection when I think about her. I feel I want attention and love from her. I try to focus on what I need in relation and what I want. I usually have lots of attention in my heart and not enough in my solar plexus. Thank you for your wisdom, Lisa. Wish you all a beautiful evening. Thanks, Jordan. Yeah, relationships are your biggest teachers. Whatever you attract in this world, especially in partners which are so intimate, is a reflection of your mind. If you are feeling a victim, you'll attract a perpetrator. If you're feeling a perpetrator, you'll attract a victim. If you can't think about the opposites, but whatever opposites there are, you'll attract it. So if you're somebody that's got low self-esteem, then you'll attract more than likely someone's high self-esteem. If you have problem stating your will, you'll most probably attract someone with strong will, and so it goes on. So whatever your partner manifests is a reflection of what is happening in you. And it's so intimate who you attract, because they have such an effect on your life. Like they become, normally what happens is eventually we move in together and they become your day-to-day experience, and that will have a big impact on you. If you want a mother, then you'll attract a mother. If your mother never gave you love, you'll attract a mother that never gives you love, etc., etc. And on the game goes. And we always have the finger pointing that way or that way. It's me, it's them, it's me, it's them, it's me, it's them. Whereas really, who is who? Where do you end and they begin? And how do you know what's what? Their anger, your anger, their abuse, your abuse. This is in no way saying it's okay to be being in an abusive relationship or abusing another in a relationship. That's easily what the mind takes it as. She's saying it's okay because who is it? I can shout at my partner because who is shouting? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there is no boundary between anything. I'm also not saying it's your fault if you pick somebody that is abusive. I've picked controlling men in my life. I can see that. And I can see why that's happened and that it's not their fault. I'm equally playing the game. I picked that because that's what my mother picked. Picked that because that's what I was trained in. I picked that because I don't have strong will, because I was trained like that and because of awakening. I picked that because it was the greatest teacher I could possibly pick. It was so enlightening. Brought up all rage and insecurity, murderous feelings in me at points. And it brought up feelings like I don't exist to them, like I am not allowed to exist. And when that is taken for what it is, when you really are prepared to see everything in this life as your teacher, then you go really into the depths of your own being and seeing that it's all illusion anyway. There is no situation, there is no person, there is no thought, there is no dynamic that can hold you ransom to anything. Who you are is this conscious presence which is glowing in the background and has nothing to do with life, and there is nothing in this life that can disturb you. Even if you have the most abusive partner, or the least abusive partner, or you're the most abusive, your freedom is never dependent on that which is appearing in life. Your freedom is always dependent on who you actually are, which is this presence glowing, beaming out of us. Glowing, beaming, radiating. So use it as a tool to look at yourself. If you're addicted, then do what alcoholics or people with eating disorders do, is you have to remove yourself from the environment and ask someone to help you come off that addiction. And if you give yourself a certain period of time, you'll come off that addiction. You can be addicted to other people, addicted to company, addicted to the affection, addicted to the security, this familiarity. Non-duality doesn't mean that you have to prescribe to monogamous, or what's the opposite to monogamous? Polynogamous. Polygamy. Being dyslexic sometimes. Polygamy. Polygamy though sounds really fantastic. Polygamy. Polygamy. So it doesn't mean that one is right or wrong, it's what you feel in the moment. I don't believe in either. I don't believe in marriage. I don't not believe in marriage. I don't believe in monogamy. I don't not believe in monogamy. It's what you feel. with that person in that moment. It's what your heart desires. Nothing's right or wrong, and if it's not appropriate for you, don't let anyone convince you of anything under the context or pretext of spirituality. But having said all that, nothing in the flow of life is your freedom. Your freedom is always that which is looking out, right here, right now. Pardon me. Thank you for your message. It's quite deep. I can't really go that deep into it with you. It'd be better if we had a one-to-one session, but we don't. But basically, if we had a one-to-one session, I would point you more into your chakras and what you feel, and seeing that these feelings aren't your truth, aren't your reality. They are simply arising, appearing, and not you, not who you are. Thank you for your question. Hello, Nick. Hello, Dennis. Your comment on Prajna Paramatar a couple of weeks ago were very enlightening. So would you please comment on Advaita Vedanta? Thanks, Dennis of Kentucky. Thanks, Dennis of Kentucky. I don't know what the depth of Advaita Vedanta is. I don't know if I could summarize it. I think it's basically the unpicking, the systematic unpicking of the illusionary sense of self, but it goes through a arduous process of different layers, starting at the beginning when the person is totally identified with the self, and then through these different sutras, and I don't know what they're called, Vandant. I did know. I just call them sutras. Through these different texts, you begin to unpick stuff. Unpicking. And these different processes. And there's a systematic system, systematic process that you go through. And for some that's really beautiful and that's really helpful, and for others it's too mental and too heady and isn't appropriate. But the illusion of self is a commitment, even though it's not really you committing, because who would be this you that commits, but this illusory you really committing to something, because it's not for the faint-hearted. We often look at non-duality a bit like buying a new sofa or buying curtains, that we're going to invest, money in it, and it will last a few years, and by the end of the few years we will have got non-duality. But it's a lifelong commitment to a different way of seeing things from everybody else in society, and a different way of living. Like we often expect, because the teaching is that it's based on that nothing in the flow of your life is your happiness, we often expect then that nothing in the flow of life will change, but it will radically change. Your flow of life will change. Your way of being will change. Your way of relating will change. Your relationships will change. Your job will change. Everything will change. But a lot of people just have this in love stage with non-duality, and then they go off it and then think it didn't work for me. They want it to just be like click, 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 it's done. Or it's this constant commitment, even though it's nobody's commitment. And what I do through these talks is these talks to me are like a meditation. Like when I used to be seeking, I would listen to people speaking like me that are speaking from that place, and I would use it as a meditation to remind myself. It's not like I would use like Advaita Vedanta. So Advaita Vedanta isn't coming from this place. Advaita Vedanta is a systematic process in which you put yourself through, in which you contemplate, and in which you do practices in order to go beyond self. Whereas these talks now, which are happening, are like a meditation back into what you are. They're not a process. Like my teaching isn't a process for you to arrive somewhere. It's like resonating with it. It's resonating with something that's deeper than you. And so a lot of teachers dismiss the way in which I speak, or other teachers speak, that don't really have a path or a process. They're just kind of sitting here speaking, and they say that they need to give people a process, and they need to give people a teaching and something to follow. But there's lots of teachers out there that do that, and lots of things that you can follow. But these are something else. It's more like a meditation as speaking's happening. Yes. Thanks, Dennis, for your question. Hi, live. If we are not a person, are we then just an energy? You could call it energy. You could even go beyond energy and just say what we are is not a thing. But by default, if you're not anything, then you're also everything. Like if you can't find yourself anywhere, you're also everywhere. Thanks, live. So remember, if you want to call in, please say call me. Like, I'm delighted to speak to you. It gives a bit of a change to speak to someone. Hi, Lisa. I have a question. Teachers like you and Roger Castilla, Rupert Spira, etc., say that reality is consciousness. I am a knowing. Whereas teachers like Tony Parsons, Jim Newman say that consciousness, I am knowing, belongs to a person, and actually reality is unknowing. Can you say something about this contrary views held by these teachers? Thank you. Hi, Santosh. Thank you for your question. I would agree that who you are is not knowing. I can't speak for anyone else, but I teach consciousness and I am teachings because it's what comes out, and it's more relatable for people. But in the end, consciousness and I am are concepts that we're conversing about, and so it must be something deeper than that. Even if you think you experience consciousness or the I am, that's still a thought. Like when you really go into the depths of the I am and the consciousness, it all disappears, and it is not knowing. It's this awakeness that knows nothing. It doesn't even know it's awake. It's the absolute end of everything, the end of self, the end of world, the end of other, the end of right or wrong, good or bad, knowing or not knowing. So I think that when you're a public speaker about this, you have to find some type of words and language in order to put it in. And they're going to be contradictory to others. They're going to be in opposition to other people's. But it doesn't actually mean that they have to be. Because in the end, if it's all not knowing, then what does it matter? Like, we as teachers are trying to evoke something that's not actually depictable in words. It's so elusive what we're trying to talk about. And I know that on both extremes, the one side would say they're right and the other side would say they're right. It goes on endlessly in non-duality. So you get some that say the I am is a feeling, some that say it isn't, some say it's love, some say it's not. It's impossible to be a feeling, and it goes on endlessly, all these arguments. And who gives a rat's ass? Who cares? I wonder where that saying came from, a rat's ass. Who cares in the end? Who's right or wrong? It doesn't matter. Words are just words which come and go in this immense presence of what we are, which is absolute mystery and not knowing. We could say it's consciousness and this I am, this empty looking and the I am, but even that is something that you know, that a mind knows. So in the end, it is beyond that. It all collapses into nothing and everything. But who cares? When I was younger and seeking, and when I lived with Roger, and Roger was my main teacher, I remember like holding on to his teachings so tightly and believing they were right, and going to other teachers' meetings or speaking with other people and just holding this, that if they have blame or guilt, that means they're still suffering, they're still identified, and this means that, and this means that. And the reason that I did it now, when I look back, was that it gave me something. It made me feel justified in what I was doing, that I knew something, that I was something. It gave me something to hold on to, like a place in the middle of this like wildness of waking up. And now who cares? But I'm not opposed to those teachers, because if I hadn't met teachers along the road that were adamant that they were right and that that was the right teaching, then it wouldn't have made me so convicted in what I was doing. So I also think that that's really important, like to go through these stages. If you think that your teaching is really right and to hold a bandana, but from this perspective, from this energy, when it's asked now, it just is like, who gives a rat's ass in the end? But don't let that become your new philosophy. If you care and you want to argue, go for it. Go and argue. Like, act it out. Like, see what's there hiding in the depths and the darkness of your unconscious. See what you're holding on to, what you want to portray. Like, in some ways we have to act out. In some ways we are always acting out our issues. What else could we act out but our karmas, but our habits and our conditions? We're also never acting out any issues, because how could we? How could we? But in the end, nothing fucking matters. Nothing fucking matters, man. Thanks, Santosh, for your question. Hi, Lisa. Can you say that after awakening there is only an acting out of the actual feeling instead of out of the head? No. Hi, Michaela. No, that's not true. There is a flow that takes over, but you're oscillating between the mind and the head. But then also everything's coming from no place as well. This like flow from nothing, which sometimes manifests as heady stuff, sometimes manifests as the instinct stuff. But you need a bit of head. You need a bit of instinct. Hi Ramos. Thank you, Lisa. Your stream's audio and video is a bit out of sync. Oh yeah, that can happen sometimes. It's not something I can fix. It's to do with the internet and YouTube. It might not be like that when it's uploaded and playing back. Thank you for telling me. Anya. Hi Anya. Hello Lisa. Could you please speak about if and how you experience strong feelings such as fear, anger, etc.? Can these still pop up once the oneness experience is established? Thank you. Hi Anya. Once it's established, yeah, anger can still pop up. But I see it's something that expands. So like the Lisa character's resistance to things expands over time and dissipates. In the beginning, I was really passive because I was so blissed out, and I think there was part of me that it was so easy to be passive, and part of me believed that was maybe the way to be because it was such a strong shift. And part of it was because that's easy, you know, if you can be passive to everything, then that makes your life easier. But what it does if you're passive to everything is it gives other people control to your life. That sounds really weird, doesn't it? But if, say, you're living in a household with your mother, say, and you're really passive, then she always gets her way. So in a way, the household becomes dominated by her energy. So in the beginning, there was a momentum towards passivity, and then I began to realize that I had to stand up to people in my life, and in order to do that I had to pay more attention to stories. Because when you're in passivity, or because really everything's a story and it's all nonsense and you don't need to pay attention to it. But I had to pay close attention to subtle feelings and then to stories. So if the mother, say for example, if you're living with your mother and if your mother's being over dominant, I had to pay attention to that she was being too bossy or that she was always getting her way. Because if you don't pay attention to those subtle feelings and thoughts, then you can just be blissed out and it can just all slide. So you have to sort of balance it appropriately. So in the beginning, I felt like I became a bit of a yes person. And if you become a yes person, then you're directed by other people's energies, and other people's energies aren't necessarily balanced. And I remember even having this feeling like I let the outside world direct me. And that's true to an extent. And I think that you could do that more if the rest of the world was balanced. And it's really beautiful to let that happen, to just have no idea of direction or way or having any wheel. It's really beautiful to experience that and to be like that. But it's not really very practical in the society that we live in. You become other people's food. But it's beautiful to experience that for a while. Like all of these things are conditionings and reconditionings and experiences that propel our experience forward and change our mind and expand us to new possibilities and help us go outside of the box. Ta-da! Yeah. So how does anger manifest in me? So normally what I feel is feelings predominantly first. So it's like an energy in the body, like anger is like fire. It's like friction of two things rubbing together, like, and it's normally an energy inside my body that's responding to an external energy. And then if I pay attention to that, I can hear like a subtle thought in it that's saying, this is inappropriate, or they shouldn't speak to me like this. And then sometimes it can loop onto old seeking patterns or old conditions way of being. So it can go into old loops. Yeah. And the same with fear. It's like a gurgling in the stomach. It's like a different energy from anger. It's like friction and fire. Fear is like a churning and a sucking maybe. Yeah. And in the end, none of it's true. So that's how it manifests in me. And it's like this delicate balance. Like being too passive, you'll become other people's will. Being too dominant, you'll become other people's will. So you have to find this middle balance. But knowing at the same time that it's not you doing it, that's something that happens. It's a happening. Thank you. Hi, Walter. Your question's disappeared. Updating conversation, it says. So I'll just move on to someone else. I hope I remember to come back to you, Walter, but it's disappeared, the question. Hi, Oleg. I want to thank you for helping me in my energetic shift in call, but I don't have headset with microphone. Your story about clouds and suns helped me a lot, and beautiful conversation video on YouTube. I learn a lot in 3 weeks' time why this is energetic shift. Your teacher Roger helped me understand non-doership. I learned a lot about what happened to people who shift without proper training. They end up in mental hospital, too much energy to handle without proper training. Body, energy, and energy overhead. Thanks, Oleg. It's beautiful. Yeah. You can end up in the hospital with it because it's so intense, energetic awakening, especially if you don't know what's happening. This is from Wesley. He asked a question earlier. Great, so thanks. So if I understand your response, Lisa, in the actual experience of sinking into one's being, the world does disappear, only being remains, yet the appearance of a world still arises in irrelevant dimensions. Is that right? That resonates with my experience. Ramana or Ramesh or Lisa or Roger or whoever still has the experience of a world, even though there is no separate self as such. I'd love to hear you do a live stream on the topic you just mentioned of passivity after awakening. It is not talked about much. Passivity and the process of learning to set boundaries and have balance so one is not dominated. The divine light in me salutes the divine light in you. Beautiful. I don't know if what you say is what I said. It sounds similar. If you like it, go with it. It doesn't really matter what I say. It's what resonates with you and in your heart. And yeah, maybe I do it. I'm sure I've done many talks on the passivity and the process of learning to set boundaries. I've done so many talks. I just can't remember where they are or which ones they are. But yeah, maybe I can remember to do that next week. Passivity. Because I hear Mooji like still talking about that, like he lets the world direct him. I haven't listened to him actually in quite a long time, but when I last heard him speak like that, and I think it's really beautiful, but I wonder if you let the world direct you and you've got all these seekers around him, like what does this world look like? I'm sure he still has no and has fire rising up against it. Hi Fatima. Hi Lisa. I have a question. I heard from almost all spiritual teachers that in the human level, you don't need to do anything or change anything in your life to become more aware. Just pay attention and be present, that's all. But on the other hand, I heard from almost all of them that they risk everything in their life for this subject, including you, my dear. Can you explain it a little more? For example, when I realized that my boyfriend divert my thoughts from I am, should I end the relationship? Oh my goodness, that's a big question. Wouldn't that be great if you just had someone that answered all your life questions like that? Which way should I go, left or right? This is such an almighty game, this thing called life. It sets it up so we can't see past or future. We can only see this present moment, but we have this ability to reflect on what could be in the future and what has happened in the past. And then it says choose. Choose. I mean, what a game. And your choice can mean life or death. Your choice can mean happiness or unhappiness, pain or pleasure, getting or losing, hurting people or not hurting people. It could mean jail. It could mean the loss of all your possessions, the gain, becoming a millionaire, becoming super successful, unsuccessful. Isn't that something? Wow, what a freaking game we're all playing in the midst of like... And then the most amazing part of it all is that we never actually get anywhere. We're always in the present moment. So even though we have this imagination to think about presence, past and future, and the timeline, we only are ever here. It's so spectacular. What a trip. Pardon me for burping, that's so rude, but it feels so good when you just let it out. This is why people become so attached to spiritual teachers and get so into them, because it begins to give them direction, or why they follow job or partner, because it gives them direction. I mean, who knows what to do in this thing called life? You know, in the olden days, 400 or 500 years ago, you had such a tight-knit family system that you were always told exactly what to do. If your father's a locksmith, you become a locksmith. If you're a woman, you become a mother. Now we have all these choices. Do you want to become a doctor, a hairdresser? Choose wisely. It will affect the whole of your life. Banker, enlightened. Not enlightened. So really, I'm giving you no answer at all. I'm avoiding the question. Because that's not what you want. You don't really desire me to give you the answer. You desire to be free of the responsibility of it. To float back into what you always are, which is beingness, which is acting, which is creating. The person always takes so much responsibility for their life. I am in control now. You're not in control. You've never been in control. It happens or not. Thank you, Fatima, for your question. I thought I was going to get through the questions tonight, but I don't think I am. Hi, Conrad. Hi, Atul. Thanks for your wisdom. There is a saying that mind is most powerful, but I felt mind is nothing without the power of being. So that is the same sense that being is all powerful. I appreciate your comments. That's a nice way to put it, to flip it around. So I'm looking out of the window at an elderflower tree, which is flowering at the moment. It has these white, creamy flowers. And my mind, Lisa's mind, organizes that in a certain way, which gives a certain appearance. So I have something inside me which feels it's beautiful. I enjoy the movements as it ripples in the wind. I see it as a particular color, a particular shape. I see it as a particular distance. And you see a bird or a bee, an insect, a cat, will all see that uniquely, dependent on the way that their brain is structured. So this is where it says mind is all powerful, because all you see is your brain everywhere. You think that you see a world that you're all participating in, but actually you just see your brain interpreting everything. So everything is an interpretation of your brain. So you're walking around in one big fat brain that's giving distance, which is turning things a particular angle, which is making light reflect a certain way. And then we think that we're actually looking at objects that inherently exist as they are and that they're a solid thing, but that's not the case. If you had supersonic eyesight, or hearing, supersonic is hearing, sorry. If you had super duper eyesight, then you would see that tree completely differently. Like if you took out a microscope and looked at the tree, it would look completely differently. If you zoomed up into the sky, you would see the tree differently. It would become like a blade of grass. So all we ever see is our brains or minds everywhere. But who is experiencing the mind? Who experiences the brain? There is this knowing, which is unknowing. The mind knows, the mind determines, the mind says this is green. But then there is something that's experiencing the mind that does not know. that is witnessing, that's free of any judgment, of any perspective, of any ability to see it this way or that way, but it's looking through a filter that sees it in a particular way. And this is no thing and everything. This is absolute mystery, and it's all things simultaneously. Hi Kevin, nice to hear from you. Greeting fellow dear luminous sourceling, just tuned in. Love you so much. Hey Kevin, I love to you too. Hi Arnie. Hey Lisa, so relaxing to listen to you today. Thanks, nothing fucking matters. That's your take home from today. Nothing fucking matters. Hi Anya. So it's not true that after the so-called shift there's no strong emotions appearing. Thank you for your beautiful answers. Loads of love. Maybe emotions become stronger in a way of the shift. I would say that in one way my emotions mellowed out, like there's less of them. Maybe when they appear they're stronger in their intensity, but who knows and who cares? Emotions are just emotions, like the tree is the tree and the sun and the sky and everything else is just emotion. We as humans look to emotion originally that we're looking to our experience for happiness, and then we look to our emotions. We get into spirituality and we look for our emotions for happiness. If we're in love and peace and joy, then that means we're spiritually aligned. But who cares? Who cares about it? And this is a profound question. Like, I'm not saying this to dismiss you, but who is the one that cares about emotions? Thanks, Anya. Hi Carmela, lots of gratitude and love, Lisa. Lots of love and gratitude to you too. Thanks a lot for your beautiful poetic answer. Thanks at all. I did it. I did all questions. Oh no, there was one person I said, I hope I remember you. Walter. Hi Lisa, I have difficulty to let go. If I try to meditate without meditator and I give up control, easily my mind takes over again. What to do? Thanks, Anki. It's really exploring what that is and what it is to control and to not control. Like, who is the controller? Who is the one that's letting go and not letting go? When you really see it for what it is, it's seen as all appearances coming from and are one energy. They're all splinters of one, and that there is no entity that can let go or not let go. There is no one that has mind taking over or not mind taking over. When we're going through a process of waking up, we get into learning how to control our thoughts and how to control our mind, and we think this is important for waking up, which it is. It has importance. It has relevance. But it's a process that you're learning, and part of learning something new, part of doing something new is falling over and failing and then learning from that and getting up and trying again. It's the same if you learn to write or read or run marathons or fly an aeroplane. You learn off your failings. You learn from the times you tumble. That's how we've evolved as humans. So you're doing something very human at the moment. You're learning your mind. You're learning what distracts you. You're learning the agitation of your mind. thing is can your mind convince you to stop? And if it does, that's perfect. But if it does, it's also destroyed that process of learning how to control your mind. But know that you won't wake up from learning to control your mind. It might settle you down, which then gives you more propensity for this subject. But that person that you believe wakes up won't ever wake up, because you are in freedom right now. It's there experiencing all of this. It is all of this. Nice. Thank you for your question. Okay, that's enough for today. Dear, I appreciate everybody so much who participates and who's watching, and I just feel a lot of love for you, and I wish you everything. I wish you all the freedom and everything that you desire with all my heart. Namaste. I see God in you. Thank you. Goodbye.